Third topic today is something I've been thinking about on my own a little bit, and just kind of want to verbally sort through it for a second. So, I think there's a pretty big consensus on who the top 20-ish teams in the sport are for next year. It's a lot of the teams we just named in the pyramid exercise. And you look through any way too early top 25, any sort of projections for next year, it's all the same names popping up basically everywhere. You can argue some should be different spots, whatever. It's pretty consensus. And the more I think about it, I think there are some teams that have like a really high ceiling, but also a really low floor in this group. And then I think there's also some teams that are the opposite, where it's like, I can't see them being a top 10 team, but they're guaranteed to be a top 20 team. And I kind of want to flesh out the difference between floors and ceilings with the top 25 for next year. This is a very singular way to look at the convo, but like, let's come up with five teams that we think have the biggest gap between their absolute ceiling, best case scenario, and their absolute floor, worst case scenario next season.
I like that. I have a very quick one that I think is probably a little obvious, but Kansas. I think they have the highest ceiling. They have a pretty low floor.
What do you think the ceiling and floor are for Kansas?
I think ceiling with everything they've put around Darren Peterson, as well as Badunga, if both of them are like completely locked in, I think we're talking about a national championship contender. The floor, though, like if it doesn't click, it doesn't work. Like I don't see how different this team could be from last year's team.
So I think I like Kansas on this list, and the argument against there being a low floor would just be that Bill Self's their coach. So how low could the floor actually go? But if you look at like step back the last couple of years where this has trended, I do think there's an argument that like at some point Bill Self might have a breaking point where it goes completely off the rails. And it could be this year's team. I don't expect it to be, but it could be. So I like Kansas as the first team because they do have a national title upside, I think. And they also have like a this went completely wrong. Bill Self's final year is here floor. That's a good start. Okay, we need four more. I want to throw Michigan into the mix.
Yeah, especially with the question marks on Yaxel. Although I think Yaxel's presence stabilizes all that, though.
So I love Yaxel. I'm a Yaxel guy. I think he's gonna be great. I would bet on him being an All American in Michigan. He also got owned by Dane Danger three times last year. There's some like competition level questions with Yaxel, and but it's a question, right? Because if he hits, he could be the second best player in America, and if he doesn't, it could be a disaster. To me, Cadeau and Mara, and even Merez to an extent, are all such wild swing guys. Do you get the best case scenario or the worst case scenario of them? If you get the worst case scenario of those three guys, this team misses the tournament. If you get the best case scenario and Elliot Cadeau looks like a new player, this team is a Final Four team. So I don't know if they're second off the list in terms of gap, but it's definitely a big one for me.
What is our definition of floor? Because I feel like it could be relative. Like I look at Kansas, and if they get like a 10 seed first bounce in the first round, like that's a bad year for Kansas.
For sure. To me, Michigan's floor is missing the tournament. That
Yeah.
is absolutely an outcome for Michigan next year.
So it's just like a wide gap relative to the team.
Yeah, basically what's the difference between their best and worst case scenario finish in a season? Today's video is presented by Underdog Fantasy.
Well, what's going on with your hat?
Well, my hat's not supposed to be this way, is it?
I don't think so. No.
Just like people who watch these videos are not supposed to not sign up for Underdog Fantasy using promo code SLEEPERS. At the time of this recording, we have 49 people who have signed up as a first-time user with Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code SLEEPERS. 50 is a very, very important number. 50 is a number we would really like to get to. You, loyal listener, person watching this video right now, could be the person who gets us over the hump with number 50. And we have a great free pick that you get with this. Donovan Mitchell to score at least 1 point. How many points did Donovan Mitchell have in game two, Cart?
I believe he was too short of 50 with 48.
Yeah, he had 48 points, 50. Very key number for a lot of reasons. If Donovan Mitchell scores 1 point, you cash in your free pick, and you can get your deposit match bonus up to $1,000 with promo code SLEEPERS. Sign up, put the promo code in, SLEEPERS. Get that deposit match, get yourself free funds, use the free pick, cash that winner, and turn your hat the right way.
Then I think another one. I know we love them. I think everything that we've seen thus far in the last 2 weeks shows that this probably shouldn't be the case. I don't think there's a lower floor in the country than BYU. I also don't think there's a higher ceiling in the country than BYU.
What do you think the floor is? Because I would say there are teams with lower floors than BYU in the top 25, but it absolutely could go wrong for them. Somebody on Twitter compared them to Rutgers the other day.
I was going to say, I think the floor is DeBances checked out early January, come conference play. And I think that that's an issue. I don't think that's going to happen with everything he's shown since arriving to campus. But that's been the biggest question mark with AJ DeBanza for years, right? And I think if that's kind of their floor is if he just checks out of this early.
I like that. I like that. Okay, BYU on the list. I think we got the three that I wanted most on this list already on the list. Looking for two more. Any other names come to mind? I have a couple I could float, but none I feel super great about.
I don't feel great about this one, so I want to float it to you. But UCLA, I think that roster's clunky. I
Ooh,
don't see the vision the way everybody else does.
what's clunky? Because I love the vision for the roster.
I like the roster. I question the fits. I question how much spacing there's going to be. I question how much Donovan Dent's going to lock in on defense. I feel like Donovan Dent's going to want to play at a faster pace than maybe some of the Cronin teams typically do. Um, I just think it's a little clunky. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to gel.
I think you're right. I think I mean they returned three starters from a team that was like good enough last year though. And they had like a just a way better point guard. It's hard for me to see it going like way off the rails, even if it is a little clunky. Um, I'll float a couple I like more than that, and I'll let you pick from there. I think the next one that would come off my list is Florida. And I get it's not great to throw the national champ on here, but here's the pitch for it goes way sideways for Florida. Xavier Lee is Aiden Mahaney. He just straight up can't play at the SEC level. That could be a possibility. It's not likely. It's like a 2% chance that happens. But Mahaney was like supposed to be a stud at UConn. I was screaming that he was going to be an All-American. And then within a week, it was like, no, I can't play him. And UConn very clearly had no point guard. Florida needs a second guy in that backcourt after losing Denzel Aberdeen. They're not going to get one. They're out of the Des Claude race. Like, it is entirely hingent on whether or not Xavier Lee's a really good player next year. The front court's going to be good, so they have some floor there. But like, if they just have no guards, that's not a competitive basketball team. And if Xavier Lee's a first team All SEC player, they're a top three team in the sport. You know?
I agree. Also, if they come up with $7 million for Boogie Flan, that could change things too. Apparently, that's just the richest price tag ever. I have one more that I really like. I'm curious how you feel about it. St. John's.
It was them or Louisville for my fifth spot, and I think I trust the talent on Louisville more than St. John's.
I think the talent on Louisville is a lot more proven. I think Ian Jackson has question marks. I think Sainon has question marks. I think Bryce Hopkins have question marks. If all three hit, I think you're looking at two of the three being first round picks and Bryce Hopkins playing in the NBA at some point. If they don't hit, I think they're back in college for another year and probably not at St. John's.
I like that. All right, St. John's at five. So our five teams with the highest gap between their ceiling and their floor: Kansas one, Michigan two, BYU three, Florida four, St. John's